All right. Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Winning Wednesday podcast. I am your host, Geneva Brown, and today I have my special guest with me who's going to kick off our series from Brokenness to Heal. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Shanda Roberts, resident of Miami, Florida, survivor, mother, wife, worshiper, all of the above, and also an advocate for surviving domestic violence.
All right. Thank you so much for your introduction. On today's episode, I really want us to focus on the heart issues, the things that cause our hearts to be broken as it relates to relationships. So, what has been your heart experience in relationships?
Oh, my heart experience has been, it depends on what the time frame. You know, there were times in my life where relationships weren't so good. And that's the time when I was growing and learning who I was and learning who I was becoming. And oftentimes we think we know better or we know what's best, and sometimes we don't. So the beginning part of my, I guess, dating life, which started very, very young, I was in an abusive relationship. And my experience then, I thought that's what relationships were. I thought that's what they were supposed to be. I thought everyone was going through it. I thought it was the norm. I didn't think that what I was going through was anything different. Later on in life, I met my now husband. We've been married 22 years. A wonderful man of God who loves me. And I finally know what love looks like, what being loved looks like, what being
Hmm.
appreciated, and someone who's concerned for you and just wants you to be okay. I finally know what
Hmm.
that looks like. So that has been my experience. It went from worse to better.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I definitely want us to talk a little bit more about your time in an abusive domestic violence relationship. So, how has that experience drove you to the work that you're actually doing now to empower women?
Well, I wanted to how it started was someone asked another friend, do they know a survivor of domestic violence and who's willing to come and share their story? And when she asked me, I was like, girl, I'm not telling anybody what happened. That's embarrassing. I'm
Hmm.
not willing to share it because I just, I assumed because I wasn't talking about it that I was over it. I was past it. By the time I think I was married, maybe 17 years, and I figured life was good and there's no need to talk about it anymore. But then like something just kept pulling on my heart to just share your story. You never know who you're going to help, who's going to needs to hear it. So I went in that day, was at Miami-Dade College, in a classroom was me and another young lady who was sharing her story. And I cried through the whole thing. I just bawled and bawled and bawled, but I got the story out. And when I was done, there was a few young women came up to me, but there's one in particular who said that she was in an abusive relationship currently at the time, and that hearing my story just gave her motivation to get out. And we stayed in touch for months after that. And I kind of tried to just help her figure out her next move. And she finally left, and she left for good. We stayed in touch for maybe a few years after that. She graduated college, she got her own place, she
Hmm.
got her own car, and she just always thanked me for helping her to get out of that. So in between that time, I was like, oh, that felt so good. It felt good to know you helped somebody else. And I started to go to collect purses and stuff them with hygiene products in a way to get inside the domestic violence shelters so that I don't know, I wanted to just somehow encourage them and then motivate them to like, this will not be your final destination. You're going to, you're going to survive this. You're going to have your own. You're going to do better. You're going to live, and you're going
Hmm.
to, fight to see another
Yeah.
day. And I just wanted to make sure they knew that this was not the end, that there is life after abuse. And that kind of just grew into us doing that, well, us meaning myself and a friend of mine. She started helping me, and my husband, of course, always has been my biggest supporter. And that kind of just grew into me getting speaking engagements and going visiting more shelters
Yeah.
and having events, and then it kind of grew into Pain the Purpose. And I got the name because I was reading an article about this lady who was buying lunch and dinner for police officers at a restaurant. And she did it because her husband died in the line of duty and she wanted to turn her pain to purpose. I was like, that's a great name. I have to use that. So
Yeah.
so that's how Pain to Purpose got birth. But I also wanted to be who I needed at the time. I didn't have
Mm,
me when I was going through what I went through. And not because people weren't around, but because I didn't speak up. I didn't say what was happening to me. Now, there are people who did see and who didn't know, but some of them were going through their own thing and didn't know how to help me. So I wanted to be who I needed at the time.
yeah. And I love how you said that. And as you were talking, it just made me think about how when we are experiencing something, how we can feel so alone. And then
Mhm.
we get out of the situation and we do think that we're better because now we're in a different space and in a different environment. So it may not seem like that past pain is still
Mhm.
there, but clearly you were able to get some of that out in what you do. That's why you feel so good in helping
Mhm.
others, because in a way it's helping you to heal too, and that's what
Yes.
it's all about, to help us all speak up and share those broken pieces of our lives with each other so that we can all come together, because all of us are broken,
Yes.
in some way, in some area of our lives. And that was one of the most driving forces that brought me to this particular series, is just realizing my own areas of brokenness and these different areas that I know the Lord placed in my heart, especially on the heart, because so many of us have heartbreak and heart issues. It may not be domestic violence, but it could be a lot of other things that comes along with our heart in relationships with someone
Mhm.
else. So with that being said, is there anything that you can share with us about, or share with others about, what they can do to start their journey from pain to purpose?
Ooh. I would, so back then when I was going through it, therapy wasn't popular. Therapy wasn't in our culture something we do, you know. We were told to pray about it and it'll be
Mm,
okay. And yes, praying is definitely a big part of our life, but also comes wisdom. There's time that we have to
hmm
say, I need help. I need someone to help me guide me through this process. Now, that being said, no, I did not go to therapy because, like I said, I didn't know to go to therapy back then. However, I encourage that now. I encourage you find someone that can help you navigate that process because healing is different for everybody. Um, the way I healed because I was determined to not be in that same space anymore, and it wasn't a 2-day event. It wasn't a month event. It took a couple of years for me to get out of that space of being a victim because I felt like everybody was against me. I was defensive in work, in church, in home, everybody could get it. It didn't matter who you were. If
mm,
you said the wrong thing to me at the wrong time, I was popping off because having survived that, I was determined not to be anybody's victim anymore.
mm.
I was determined that no one's gonna hurt me, no one's gonna get slick out the mouth to me. No, but I mean anybody could get it. I lost jobs, I lost friendships because I
Wow.
was so defensive and so determined not to be hurt that I was doing the hurting at that time. Because when you leave an abusive relationship physically, there's still some after effects, there's still some emotional things going on inside of you that you know how to channel that. So that's why I say we need definitely suggest that people go to therapy and get that help. But also how to heal from that. I just stayed away from things that reminded me of that situation. I stayed
Hmm.
away from places that remind me of that situation. I wouldn't drive to certain places or do certain things. Like back then we hung out and went to the club. I stopped doing that because I didn't want to run into my abuser. I didn't want to run into people who knew him and they were
Hmm.
asking me about him because even though it was an abusive relationship, I thought I was in love. I thought, okay, now what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do without this craziness that was going on in my life? Because from 15 to 23, that's all I knew. That was the
Wow.
crazy part of my life. Even though it was dysfunctional, it was my dysfunction. And now needed to learn how to live normally. And I did not know how to do that. And I had to go back to God. I had to go back to
Mm.
praying because, like I said, I didn't know about therapy at the time. It wasn't popular. So I had to go back to praying, and I had to go back to, okay, Shonda, speaking life into myself, encouraging myself and reminding myself of who I was, and just knowing that I am not what happened to me. So it took a lot of self-help at the time for me, but that's what helped me. But I encourage people today, these days, to go get help and also surround yourself with people that will encourage you. Because truth be told, there are times we can't encourage ourselves. There are times when
Right.
we just don't know how to take that right foot, and go in front of the other foot. We don't know how to move sometimes. So you need to make sure you have a positive circle that of people who are going to encourage you and lift you up and just check on you, because and don't be afraid to say what you're going through. Don't be afraid to say your feelings. I found the people that who are in abusive relationships are afraid to say that, or say
Yeah.
that. They're afraid to tell their jobs, they're afraid to tell their friends out of embarrassment. And that's one thing we have to remind people: it's not your fault that this happened to you. Make sure you tell people what's going on, because if you don't, how can people help you? You have to say it, what's going on, and get people around you that's going to help you get through that.
Yeah. And I love how you said they have to say it. It just reminds me of just putting it out there in the
Yeah,
forefront by really admitting it and saying, "Hey, this
yeah.
is really happening to me." Do you remember the first time that you just had to just get it out and say it out loud that I'm in this abusive relationship and I need to get help?
I think the first time, let me think, because child, I'm 48 now these days. My memory sometimes is jumbled, but I want to say the first time I said something and really said something was that day I spoke at that event when I was out of it already.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was the first time I admitted to being a victim of domestic violence. Because before, like I said, I thought it was just normal. I didn't know I was a victim and needed help. Now, I will say I did mention this one time to a first lady of our church. I will say back when I want to say 18, 19, because I married him at 19. So let's say 19, a little after 19. And I did tell her that I don't recall saying I was in an abusive relationship, but I did tell her I was in a marriage that was not happy, and that I was not happy, and I needed to get out. And I remember going to her, and I remember her saying that I needed to stand by my man.
Mm,
That basically whatever it was I was going through, to deal with it. That's how I took it. And
wow.
I remember saying then that, okay, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to stay in it. Maybe I'm not supposed to talk about what's going on. Maybe I'm not supposed to, because that's the one time I can remember saying something to someone who was older than me, who I thought could help me.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me I needed to stand by my man. So I left it alone. I never talked about it anymore to anyone. Like I said, if you didn't see it, I didn't talk about it. Even my mom and my brothers, no one knew until way after. And a lot of the reason is because he didn't hit me in my face. His target was my head. He only hit me in my head. I had bruises and knots in my head, under my wigs, under my weave, and at the time I had short cuts. So I would just cut my hair back off again, and just wear it so short so he couldn't grab my hair. So a lot of the bruises, most 95% of the bruises were in my head. And if he did hit my face, it was by accident, because he didn't want people to know that he was abusing
Wow.
me. He didn't want me walking around with him, as he would say, with my face messed up. So he would never hit me in my face. So I was able to hide it and mask it for a long time. Everyone thought that I was with someone who just took care of me, because financially he provided for me. On the outside, I had rings on every finger and outfits, dressed up to the nines, and vehicles. And so no one knew what I was going through. They just thought I was with somebody who was taking care of me.
Wow. Wow. That's so eye-opening that, you've carried so much of that with you and
Hmm.
how no one knew until after this time. And it just makes me wonder how many other women that are like
Hmm.
you that have gone through such a traumatic experience, and now they're just trying to get out and try to help themselves, and realizing that no, what I went through was traumatic and that wasn't right, and I still need to heal from that, and that just, wow, I know this is definitely going to help someone, because
Yeah.
as you talking, I'm thinking. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know that they are also thinking, because one thing about it is that our past, it does not define us of
Yeah.
who we are.
Yeah.
The things that we experienced in the past, we don't have to continue to keep carrying them on with us. We can let those things
Exactly.
go, and we can
Yeah.
heal from those things. So what now? Now that you've been out of that, now that you've, come to terms with that, now that you're on this path of healing and you're now helping others, what does now a healthy marriage or relationship look like to you now?
Oh, girl, that's a whole nother segment. But since we but since we're here, one example that I always use is when I was in an abusive relationship, my abuser would want me to check in. I had to call him when I got to where I was going. I had to call him when I was
Mm,
leaving. I had to call him when I was there. I had to let him know where I was all the time. So when I left the abusive relationship, I met my now husband. He would do that. He would call me when he got to where he was going. He would call me when he was leaving work. He would call me if he's going to the store. He would call me, and I was like, "Why is he?" I'm not gonna do that. So I don't know why he calling me because I'm not gonna call
right.
him. In my mind, I'm finally free from that. I'm not checking in with
Right.
nobody. He's gonna know where I am when I get there. So then I can't remember that. I remember the conversation came up one time, and because he never asked me to do it, he just did it. So I asked him one time, you ain't got to check in with me. You ain't got to call me wherever you're going. He said, baby, it's not because I'm checking in. I'm letting you know I made it just in case something happens. He said, I want you to know that I made it, and I'm concerned for you as well. I want to know that you made it to where you're going. I want to make sure that you made it safe and to tell you that I love you. And I was like, oh, so that's what love
Mm,
looks like. Instead of it being control in the previous relationship, this time it's because it was love and concern. So now, 23 years later, we've been together 23 years. We still call when we get to where we're going. He calls when he gets to work every morning at 7 a.m. He calls me. Every day at 3:30 p.m. He calls me. He calls me throughout the day, just checking on you, make sure you're good. And I call him. But now I anticipate those phone calls. If he don't call me by 3:35, I'm calling him. Okay, something must be wrong. Because my husband gonna call me every day at 3:30. I don't care if I'm out having lunch with the girls. He's gonna call me, hey baby, I'm on the way home from work. And if I don't answer, he'll text me. So now I look forward to that because now I think something's wrong if he doesn't call me or something may happen to him. But now that's healthy. You know what I mean? It's healthy
yeah.
communication.
Hmm.
That's healthy love because he supports me. I support him. I can't do an event, sing a song, go somewhere without him stopping what he's doing and praying for me. He's praying for me. He's making sure that I'm okay. And vice versa. You have to support each other and communicate. Yes, we've had arguments. Nothing has been perfect in these 23 years. And there's even been times where we thought we were going to divorce in the beginning because I came from having to defend myself so much till I
Right.
thought I had to defend myself from him. And he had to remind me over and over again, I am only here to love you and take care of you. You don't have to have your guard up with me. So I feel safe with him, Geneva. I feel safe with him. I don't have to be survivor. I don't have to be fighter and I don't have to be victim or whatever with him. I just have to be me because he covers me and he protects me at all costs. And that's what a healthy relationship looks like. I don't have to be in defense mode with him at all. You know what I mean? I can let my guard down if I want to cry. He's not judging me if I'm having a bad day. He's just making sure I'm okay. He going on to the other side of the house until I'm back to wanting to talk. But he does not hold that against me because I don't want to talk right now. You know what I mean? Our relationship right now, we've been married, like I said, 22 years, and our kids are adults. We're, I feel like, in the best part of our marriage
Mm.
now
Ooh,
because
that's what I'm looking forward to.
listen, Glory, let me tell you, you know, we're dating all the time now and we're having fun and we're to the point now we're just getting ready. We have grandbabies coming, you know what I mean? And it feels like we're starting over with the grandbabies, but it's not to the point where we have to be, 100% responsible for them.
Right.
So, this part of our life, I feel that this is the best part of our marriage because I can't even tell you, and it's not to brag. I don't remember the last time we had an argument. You know what I mean? We have disagreements. That's going to always happen. But we've learned how to fight fair. We've learned how to
Mm,
communicate our feelings and not walk around holding a grudge. We know how to talk when it's time to talk. And we also know not how to sweep things up under the rug because we have to make sure you have uncomfortable conversations. I talked to him last week. We were in Kentucky at our son's game, and we we're in the hotel, and I was listening to a podcast with this woman. She's a wife, and she talked about having invisible, is it invisible jobs or invisible something? And she talked about having all of these tasks as a mother and as a wife. Like we have to make the appointments. We have to make sure they get to the appointment. We have to, have all these things in our mind at all times because that's how the house is going to function, right? So I was
right.
telling that to him. He listened. He did not interrupt me. He said, "Okay, but baby, you make all the appointments, but who gets them there?" He said, "I take them to the appointments. I take them to school." I said, "Oh, you're right. You got a point there, sir." So he said, "We have a balance. So I don't want you to feel like you're
Yeah.
doing this by yourself." And I said, "You know what? You're right. So let me take that back." You know what I mean? So we have those conversations where we can say, even if I felt overwhelmed, I told him, and he reminded me that I shouldn't feel overwhelmed because he has my back. And he does. I can't tell you last time I took kids to school. He always did that. He always cooked. He always, made sure they had a hot breakfast and a hot dinner. And I fixed the washing machine and TVs. You know what I mean? Everybody's household runs different, but we
Right.
have a balance. You know what I mean? That we also we make sure we take care of each other. So, you got to have those uncomfortable conversations, but respectfully. You have to make sure that you're there for that person, you support them and you love them, and you just make sure you show that. And that's how it has gotten us this far. We just make sure that not only do I love him, but I like him. He likes me.
Mm,
We like spending time together.
right.
Because there are gonna be times as now when them kids are grown and y'all gotta look at each other like, oh, do we really like each other? Or were we so busy with raising kids that we didn't even realize who we were? You know what I mean?
Right.
My husband's 50 now and I'm 48. We were 25 and 26 when we met. We're not those people anymore. We're
Right.
not those
Mm-hmm.
young people anymore. Life has changed us. We've grown. What may aggravate me now may not have aggravated me then, and vice versa, and sometimes like I have to tell him, ask him what's wrong. You look a little grumpy today. He's like, I'm okay. Sometimes we have to just, check on each other and
Yeah,
do a
yeah.
temperature check and make sure you're good. So, it comes with life. It comes with learning and growing and just making sure you're being there for each other. That's basically in communication. Communication
Yeah,
is
communication is key.
imperative at this age.
Any age.
Any age. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Oh my God, you have dropped so many nuggets. I know our listeners are definitely going to enjoy this podcast today. Before we wrap it up, do you have any upcoming events or any opportunities that our listeners can join in to help support Pain to Purpose?
Yes, we do. We have our fifth annual Survivors Ball. So our Survivors Ball was created because I wanted to celebrate those who want to share their story. And not to say that the ones who don't should not be celebrated. They're just not ready yet. And I
Right.
felt that when I shared my story, how I was able to empower other people. So in having our Survivors Ball, our survivors are also helping themselves to heal but also empowering whoever is in the room and whoever is going to share their story the next time, whether it be with our organization or with someone else. The point of it was I am victorious, I survived, and you can too. And that was the purpose of it. And also, we took the survivors and we bought them dresses and we get their hair
Oh,
done, we get their makeup done. The first couple of events, it kind of changed from that just because of life and things
yeah.
happening. But that was the main focus of it in the beginning was my husband would cook breakfast. We had a room that we would rent out and we would just have a day of pampering before the event. And I'm hoping to get back to that with more donors and sponsorships. But even so, the mission still gets accomplished. And
Right.
so that event is this Saturday. We have it every year, except for the COVID years. This is our fifth year doing so. Our tickets are still on sale. They're $60. And that money goes towards the event, of course, but also our teen summit, which we have in February. In February, our teen summit that's I think that's our 16th summit coming up, where we talk about suicide, depression, bullying, self-esteem. We also talk about financial literacy, entrepreneurship. That's a free event for our families, for parents, for teens. We get a hot meal. My husband's a chef, and he cooks lunch for everybody. We have giveaways for our parents and our participants. And that event is from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Just follow our website for more updates on that. We also have a hashtag exit plan workshop that will happen next year. That's probably our third one. So where we talk about how to leave an abusive relationship. Not everyone knows what to do, and not everyone knows how to help someone leave an abusive relationship. So we kind of drop some nuggets about what to take when you're leaving, who to reach out to, what to have. For me, I when I left my abusive relationship, I had a bag of clothes that I would take out of my house every day until I felt I had enough. And then one day I left and never came back. And I had a friend's house that I went to, and I kind of hid in plain sight. I was literally maybe 15, 20 minutes down the street, but he didn't know that. I parked my car at the park. I got a new car, parked at the parking ride. I got on the bus, back in my car, and back in the house for the rest of the day. I wouldn't even go put gas in my car. I had someone else do it because I didn't want him to find me. So we have a hashtag exit plan workshop where we talk about our resource, people what resources they can get, and also how to help someone that they may know leave an abusive relationship. And then also we still do our Stuff a Purse initiative where we take persons to the shelter and we stuff them with hygiene products just to, like I said, to give some encouragement to our survivors on moving forward. So those are our events. Our website is pain the number two purpose76.org. And on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, it's pain the number two purpose76. You can follow us on there and find all of our current events and also upcoming events.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing those opportunities. I know our listeners will definitely take part if they are in any way. And even if it is, do you have a place where you can just accept donations on your website? Is that on there as
Yes,
well? Okay.
yes, we have a link on there as well.
All right. Perfect. Well, y'all, that was the Winning Wednesday word. Thank y'all for joining me, and I will see y'all in the next one.